Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. In this video, I'll be sharing my thoughts and my score on a compilation that's kind of grown in cult status over the years. And I've always felt like I've been really tied to it, and it's always been a special compilation for me. And it's one called Los Angeles Critical Mass from 1998 on the small, little known at the time and still little known Mindspore Records, also out of Los Angeles. So, growing up in the 90s, if you were like me and you were going to record stores and you wanted to expand your tastes and find a lot of different music, and you weren't sure about, certain artists, you never heard their name before, and compilations were so important in the early 90s and all the way through the 90s, and especially in different styles. Like it almost seemed like there was a new style of electronic music coming out like every other couple months. Like drum and bass would be out in jungle, and then trip hop, and then happy hardcore, or whatever. There was just so many different styles, and you would kind of like buy one and see if you liked it, and you were kind of like, but for the most part, I really loved most of the genres. There wasn't too many genres that I didn't like. A lot of the '90s, maybe happy hardcore was maybe the only one, but there's still some good piano tracks in that genre that I've learned to find over the years that were kind of maybe tied more towards hardcore and just rave music in general, but I don't mind in a kind of a nostalgic way. And a lot of times they had kind of catchy pianos. But if you guys grew up through the 90s, I mean, here's just some examples of great compilations back in the day. Excursions and Ambience on Astroworks Records. United States of Ambience series on Moonshine Records. Ibiza After Hours, also on Moonshine Records. The Great Cafe Del Mar compilations. If you guys remember Chill Out or Die compilations were great. Plug in and Turn On series on Instinct. Modulations and Transformations on Millie Plateau out of Germany. Ambient Groove on ESP and all the ESP compilations. The Amazing Free Zone compilations were excellent. After Hours, which had a lot of lounge music and drum and bass and future jazz. Also, Journey into Ambient Groove. Those are just some examples of great compilations in the 90s that, are they're so important to my growth in the 90s and learning music. And that's just a snapshot of them. A couple years ago, I did a top 40 favorite compilations of the 90s. And I'll probably have to bring that video to bring that list and do it here on the channel. I think that's one of my favorite lists of all time because the compilations were just so important. And if you hear my videos and you hear me talk about 90s electronic music, you'll often hear me talk about the importance of compilations. And this one has a special story to me and a special memory for me. It was 1998. I was shopping in a record store and in Los Angeles because I'm from Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. Saw this compilation. Saw the artwork and didn't know any of the artists, but just took a chance on it. Didn't even know the label, but I mean, how could you not pick it up from the cool picture of the city that you're in, right? And you kind of felt like it was kind of probably a down tempo style of compilations, like 1998. Remember the times trip hop was big, liquid drum and bass was big. Probably the end of the acid jazz era of the early 90s, kind of going into the 90s, but you also had maybe big beat in there. Again, trip hop and just lounge music in general. Maybe a little bit of house and techno in there, but for the most part, it was just kind of like a combination of a lot of different styles, and it was kind of like down tempo and lounge, and that's kind of what spawned the term electronica, and it was kind of that maybe it wasn't techno, right? It wasn't house music, right? So a lot of things were lumped into electronica at that time, around like '96 to maybe '99, 2000, until even the genres went even further into the subgenres as the 2000s went on. But 1998 was, I mean, I was just coming out of recording school in 1997. I was I was starting to DJ out like at lounges and stuff like that in Los Angeles and like certain restaurants and cafes and stuff like that, like coffee bars. And I didn't DJ a lot. I don't say like I DJed out like I was DJing out every weekend, but occasionally I would, and a lot of times it would just be at like small house parties with friends and stuff like that. And I would always like grab, I always had this love for being the opening DJ and kind of setting the mood. And I grabbed Kruder and Dorfmeister and Thievery Corporation at the time, and some of my electronic CDs, and kind of the more lounge side of what I liked. Like if you guys know Pork Recordings or uh, what's that one, Compost Recordings, or stuff like this. Like you'll hear on this mix CD, which I'll play the entire mix CD, and you'll see my scores on each track. It's interesting, and this is the first time I'm you know. Rating a compilation on my channel, which is was something I planned on doing, but I really wanted to feature this because I was kind of had some good memories of it this morning. And back on Discogs in 2002 or something, I added this to the database, and so my name's on this release as well. And if you see the release, I'll put a link down below. You can see my story on it. And over the years, the compilation has just grown in to a really kind of like level of cult status that I was really surprised at, but I'm not fully surprised because I remember when I bought it and I used to play it, it was like it was so different, and maybe not different because when you hear the music and but it was a really good collection of underground artists that nobody really had ever heard of. And unfortunately not a lot of them went on to a long storied career. So it has that kind of unknown kind of element of these people who just maybe did like one track or maybe did an album or maybe two and was in the business for a couple years and went on. And I find that so appealing because for a snapshot, you hear what their interests are and you hear what their style of music is and their vision. And they got added to a compilation and we're probably excited about it and starting their career. And this is so in a way it's kind of a snapshot of certain people's personality and their vision and their music. And so I always found that fascinating, especially with compilations, because a lot of times with compilations, sometimes this was the only track they ever did, and sometimes um, you would never hear from again, and you were like, oh, I really like that song. And you would just look for that name for the rest of your life in looking at compilations and CDs and looking through bins, and you would never see that name again. But you always kind of harken back to that CD and was like, oh, there was so many. And this is kind of a microcosm of that because a lot of them are like that. It's not just like one track is like unknown. Like most of the tracks were from unknown artists. And if you look online and you see the prices that this CD's gone, like it recently sold in July for $180 for this CD. And you can see the halves to the want list on Discogs. It's like a little bit over 100 have it and over 1,000 want it. It's just kind of raised to this cult status. And then, kind of a long story short, like a roundabout way, kind of coming full circle. A couple of years ago, I got a chance to talk to. Actually, it was just maybe about 18 months ago. I talked to the artist named Cavestar, and over the years, in that time, I ended up getting a lot of the other releases on that label as well. There wasn't too many. I think there was like maybe six or seven. So I had five. This was a compilation. A group called Soundscape also had a release on there. Synthetic Block, which this one's kind of dark and you kind of you tell from the artwork. And then Cavestar, who's the gentleman that I actually contacted about this album, and we kind of shared some memories about it. And apparently, at the same time, they had just released a part two because of the kind of cult status and kind of the following kind of led to them doing a second version. And so it was released in 2023, and they even kind of used a similar style artwork and kind of carry on that compilation 25 years later. And so I got a chance to talk to him, and I was like, I run a reissue label. I'd be I'd be thrilled if we could work out putting this on a double set vinyl, a double pack vinyl. And so he loved the idea, and he helped me kind of gather some of the contacts on these artists and trying to contact them. And unfortunately, we only had about five of the eight or nine people that we wanted to contact on the release that were, the artists on here. And unfortunately, we only got like one person back who said, "Yeah, that would be great. I'm interested in it." The like three of the other ones didn't even respond, or maybe we have old contacts of them and it didn't work. Two people came back and said they weren't really interested in us doing it. One, not for any like negative reasons. It was just like, that's not really my style of music anymore. I don't really want to partake in it. Somebody else said, I can't remember the other reason, but unfortunately, it just couldn't work out. And you don't want to do reissues without the artist's approval. It's just not. It's just in bad taste. And um, sadly, we couldn't reissue it, so it may never find its way to vinyl. Maybe some tracks will be released on a single, and maybe that's the way to go. I'd probably, if I fully restart my record label in the future. Well, I shouldn't say fully restart. I have a release coming out, but probably in about 2 months. But if I should probably contact Cave Star because I think he did two of the tracks on here, and then I could probably pick a couple tracks. We could pick a couple tracks from his release and put out like a 12 inch, and that would be a kind of a cool because he has kind of like a nice drum and bass style and chill out style and lounge, and so that would probably be the best. But that would have been such a great kind of full circle moment to be one. I don't know if I was one of the first persons to ever buy it, but I know I took a chance on it when it first came out in early 1998. It was kind of my go-to lounge CD for like DJing. And because I started out on CDs, even though I had vinyl. My first really DJ mixer was a old Denon, a standalone CD, not standalone, but it was a rack mounted one with the remote if you remember. But I had vinyl as well. But when I first started DJing out, like when I was DJing at lounge and stuff, I was DJing like with CDs and mixing CDs. So I'd bring my mixer and my CD player, which had dual CDs again. And so, I would play this, and it just had such memories for me. It just kind of it kind of um, captured the sound of Los Angeles, and then with the artwork and that kind of trip hop sound, and even though I wasn't like a huge fan of like trip hop and I mean I was, but it was kind of secondary to my love of more late night sounds of techno and deep house and really glitch and ambient, which I'm a big fan of, and just IDM music. Those are kind of like my favorite styles. But there's style of electronic music you want to hear during the day, right? You can't listen to hardcore techno at like 6 p.m., right? That was kind of so you needed music to kind of, especially if you were a versatile DJ and I just liked a lot of music anyway, so I wanted to play a lot of music throughout the night. And I always felt like the opportunity, because everybody wanted to play the late night set. Everybody wanted to play the night when everybody's on the dance floor, or everybody's, having a good time and the most people there. I wanted to set the mood and like make everybody feel comfortable and ramp up the night. So I always loved like DJing at like 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. and kind of set the mood and also play at like restaurants and stuff. I remember playing at this one restaurant, even if I just got one person to come up and say, "Man, I really like the music that you're playing. What is it?" You know what I mean? Like I would get that, and I would like that would make my night. And often you wouldn't get paid for those nights, and they would just give you like free coffee or free drinks or something like that, and I would sit there and play for a couple hours, but it was cool with them let me kind of improve, or not improve, but enhance their establishment with some good background music. And I was always very respectful of the volume where you're playing music. It's one of the big mistakes of a lot of DJs when you're growing up, and I think it was important because I kind of came from more of a chill out style of DJing, I guess, and I always felt like I was a little bit more respectful than a lot of DJs. Like a lot of times you go in and you hear these young DJs, and they're just blasting the music to a ridiculous level where you're just like, there's nobody on the dance floor. Like, why are you playing that set? Oh, well, that was what I was going to plan to play. Okay, well, I mean, how much are you DJing if you have a set DJ track list that you're not even adjusting to what's going on in the dance floor or what's going on. You're playing the wrong music for the wrong type of mood or venue you're trying to set. You're really not enhancing it. You're really kind of pissing off customers, and you really they can't even talk to each other. There's nobody in the place. It's just like this DJ etiquette thing that I could go on and rant about. But if you kind of came from the lounge, like you kind of had you had to warm up the crowd and warm up the feel and kind of move yourself into the environment and the aesthetic of the place and really kind of understand where you're playing it. Like if the lights are on and people are chatting and you know what I mean, you have to be respectful of that and play the right music for the right and kind of ease into it and earn their trust and then turn them on to some different music. And once you get kind of comfortable, then you can kind of explore your collection and maybe turn them on to some different stuff. And maybe you see them kind of get into it and they're kind of like, oh, this is cool. I like this. And then you're like, okay, well, I can go down this style and I think you'll like this. And so when somebody came up to me and was like, hi, I really liked your music, it meant the world to me. And it was like the best feeling. And it was kind of that feeling of like, Tim, you're on top of the music. Like you're on it on the hip music of electronic music at that particular time. It was kind of like your confirmation of what you were spending so much time in the record store and what you wanted to play and what you chose and what you were interested in. It was kind of like that confirmation of like, you're doing a good job. Keep up the work. Keep finding the good music for us to enjoy. It was kind of like that, and those kind of things, comments from patrons and people walking by was just everything. It was like it was just so special, and there's nothing like being a DJ or playing music for somebody, just in general, because that's what DJing is, right? It's just playing music for people. I don't think of it. I don't get all grandiose with this big. Oh, I'm setting the atmosphere for the club, and this kind of superstar DJ thing that started in the late '90s, and oh, look at me and selfies and stuff like that. It's just kind of gone just way overboard, and it's just there's that's why I like lounges and stuff and playing at restaurants and stuff because you just play the music and people kind of come there not expecting to hear good music and then they hear good music and I think they're kind of like, oh, that was cool. I wanted to go to a hip place, and have a restaurant. And I didn't know I was going to get like a cool concert soundtrack to have a nice dinner to. Like that was always super cool. So that was kind of like that was the way I would kind of sell myself to places that wouldn't necessarily have a lot of DJs. I was like, don't you want your customers to stay longer? Well, what's going to help them stay longer and pay more money for drinks or stay longer and order an appetizer, right? If you play good music, right? I'll bring you good music. They'll stay later, right? So that was kind of like my way to kind of sell myself more so than giving out a mixtape or a mix CD to kind of like, here's my style, right? Because I never liked giving out mix CDs as like one representation of what I like to play. Like if I give you a lounge CD and it happens to be for a club, obviously I wouldn't do that. But what I mean, it's just I like to play so many different styles. So if I come in, I'm going to bring a wide range of music, and I'm going to go with the flow of what's happening. I'm not going to play hardcore dance music if there's only two people in the club. Even if I know it's a dance club, I'm going to ramp it up and get there. And maybe by the end of the set, the next person will take over and build it up. Like that's kind of a DJ etiquette of building a night and making your customers and your listeners, and the people there have a good time. But, long story short, this was a great CD that kind of set that tone for me, and it was often played, by me so much. And then I came to Discogs and added it to Discogs, and now it's it goes for like crazy prices. Probably one of the most expensive CDs, um, secondhand CDs that I know of that come from like an American market. Like there's some that come from like European markets and stuff like that, like rare labels in here. But for a CD compilation from 1998, which I imagine was probably only released in Los Angeles, so it wasn't released overseas. There was no distribution overseas, and it might have been only released on the West Coast. But I did see some notes of it being played on a few radio stations, like in Canada and uh, another area. So I did see that note, but just a really um, really important compilation for me. So I'm going to play the entire CD. You'll see my score on each track, and I'll come back with you at the end and just give you my final thoughts and kind of run through a few of the tracks. I didn't think this video would be that long, so I apologize, but hopefully you'll enjoy the music, and then hopefully you'll hear my comments at the end and kind of wrap it up. But yeah, let's hear Los Angeles Critical Mass from 1998 on Mindspore Records.
Pour des renseignements enregistrés en anglais concernant la disponibilité de notre prochain vol Concorde, composez le 9. Pour des informations enregistrées en anglais sur les arrivées et les départs de nos vols de et vers les États-Unis, composez le 1. Pour des informations enregistrées en anglais sur nos tarifs promotionnels.
So free, everything you want to, so need, and everything you want to be, I'm here for you, baby. Everything you want to be, so free, everything you want to be, want to be free. And I know that you got to, from this moment on.
Pour des renseignements enregistrés en anglais concernant la disponibilité de notre prochain vol Concorde, Pour des renseignements enregistrés en anglais concernant la disponibilité de notre prochain vol Concorde,
and fly.
dans l'amour, ça pas mal de fois. T'as joué au mal en faisant ta cour, tes grands airs d'opéra. Des filles plaquées contre le jour comme des bêtes à suçon. Pâte à rêver, prête, cuire au four, servir sur lit de glaçon. Et y a des matins paniqués, t'as une petite souris dans le zoo. T'es en état d'amour clinique. Tu prends l'eau. Elles t'ont demandé, avec des larmes, de les garder un peu. Tu les as passées par les armes, histoire de chercher mieux. T'as quand même pris des vestes en or et des bûches dans les dents. Des mots de la fin signés dehors et qui font froid dedans. Maintenant tu traînes à la dérive, des crocs luisants, plein de plis d'éponge, à bouffer tout ce qu'a âme qui vit. Tu replonges. Il s'est cassé, de faire le tour des pôles, de faire le tour de tous les bassins à se souper, de ses épaules se reposer sur un banc d'oursin où c'est assez, de faire des ronds de queue de jambes auprès de l'île de Saint, faut s'arrêter, briser la glace, voir le soleil, l'orque polar. L'orque polar. L'orque polar. L'orque polar. L'orque polar. L'orque polar.
Cinderella in the wrong dress, a sleeping beauty whose face is a mess, a Jezebel who's not saying yes. Monahar is about to confess. Sweet Pollyanna's just a little depressed. I sing loud. It's just a little voice inside of me. I sing loud. A little voice inside of me. Like a desperate Ophelia that keeps getting wet, a Joan of Arc about to forget, like Salome in a pirouette. I'm just a tattered Venus in a leatherette. I sing loud. It's just a little voice inside of me. I sing loud. It's just a little voice inside of me. I sing loud. It's just a little voice inside of me. I sing loud. Like Scheherazade in a missing chapter, a Kali at peace, all joy and laughter. Persephone's forgotten winter. It seems Juliet is just a little bitter. Just a little voice inside of me.
All right, so there you got a chance to hear the entire compilation of Los Angeles Critical Mass. And I didn't get a chance earlier to show the kind of folded out, which was kind of a cool inside, um, artwork, liner artwork to the liner notes and artwork to the CDs. But as you can see here, kind of an eclectic array of 1998 in a microcosm. Like you got some down tempo in here, you got some lounge music, you got a little bit of like future jazz and drum and bass in here and electronica and sort of the end of the acid jazz period of early 90s going into 90s and that kind of influence too. So just kind of a urban kind of, there's even a little bit of, certainly trip hop in here, but also a little bit of like hip hop beats in here and just kind of has an urban style. And that's what I always really liked is it, in a strange way, it kind of captured what Los Angeles was of trip hop and hip hop at that time because Los Angeles was and that's kind of why you hear in some of the later tracks like track number 10 there's like a little bit of acid in there and I think there's always like a slight kind of psychedelic kind of feel in this album, although it's not upfront and it's not obviously like psychedelic and like strange samples or kind of mystical. It's not mystical in any way, but it's kind of like an urban style. But there is kind of like a chill out vein in here that because it's tied to the West Coast and West Coast had like an interesting lineage of chill out music and its own style because it was blended by so many styles. And so, this was a lot different than the New York sort of trip hop in a way because I don't think a lot of New York trip hop and stuff blended a lot of drum and bass a lot of times and other styles like this one did. This one's a little bit different if you know the East Coast trip hop scene and even the European trip hop scene. Like this is a little bit different. Like maybe if you compare this to like instrumentals without the vocals of like Massive Attack or stuff on Ninja Tune records at the time or there's a lot of trip hop artists. I wouldn't go to the extreme and say like Portishead or Matrix soundtrack or those kind of feels like Propeller Heads and stuff like that. But if you're a little bit more into the underground, there's a little bit of psychedelic in here and just the blend of different styles and maybe a little bit more. I don't know if I'd say hip hop because Ninja Tune had certainly a lot of hip hop flavor on their down tempo tracks, but there's something different in this, and I can't quite still put my finger on it, but knowing it's from the West Coast and knowing the lineage of chill out music myself really well because that's one of I feel like my strong knowledge of is growing up through that period, and that was one of my favorite styles, just chill out music in general. Like this is kind of not really in chill out, it's more in like lounge and trip hop, but it kind of has that inspiration in some ways in sort of a one-off kind of maybe not super polished and maybe not super polished like tracks, but they're kind of like underground kind of maybe like overly produced. They're kind of like maybe not done tracks done in a studio and things like that. Like they don't have the quite maybe the polish and the cohesiveness from like another label would at the time, and maybe that's because of maybe the budget of the label of the mastering at the time and stuff like that. I mean, everything's in the pretty tight. There is track number 7 is a little loud and but just the collection of tracks is not. It's so different that it almost doesn't go together. But then like back in the days, there was parts of this album that really didn't go together for me. And then now, kind of 27 years later, it kind of does more and more, like, as the years kind of go on. Like, track 7 was my least favorite, and now it's kind of, like, maybe catchy and sort of an endearing way because I used to play this compilation so much, and I would get to that track and be like, oh, I would mostly skip that track. It was my least favorite, but now I think it's pretty good. I gave it as you saw, I gave it a 5.5 stars. But my favorite 3 tracks on here is starting with the THC, Unsaid Warning. Man, it almost sounds like nothing really I've heard. It almost sounds like a mix of like Garbage and Portishead with a great dark vocal, and it's really like a haunting vocal. Love the melody. The beat is pretty basic, trip hop beat, but it's just something to behold. It's just love the acid line at the end and sort of rises to meet the echo, this big echo of the vocal, right? And the big strings on the top. It kind of has like a dark story to tell, and just love that track. So great. And then track 2 and 4, I like equally as much. If you saw my score, I rated both those at 8.5. The Lost Cities by Trinity, track number 2, excellent lounge track, smooth, almost has that acid jazz feel to it. Certainly kind of an aquatic feel in there. I love the tribal kind of percussion in there. The keys are really dreamy, and then it's got like a really clean drum and bass beat. Really good vocal as well. And then track number 4, Cave Star and More, Say the Word. I used this on a chill out mix a couple years ago for a French radio station. I made a mix for this French radio station that kindly asked me if I would do a mix for them, and I'll probably put that mix on here sometime in the future. I really haven't. I didn't want to get too. I put one of my mixes on here, on my channel, but I don't want to get kind of crazy and just make this about my mixes and stuff. But occasionally I'll put some mixes on here. But I'll definitely put that mix. But it's kind of more like a playlist than really a mix. But Cave Star and More, the track number 4, Say the Word. Just a great drum and bass track, great vocal, also dreamy, lounge, liquid kind of drum and bass track somewhat. I can never say which one's my favorite between track number 2 and 4. I like them equally. I can never really choose one over both. I give both 8.5 stars. Super solid tracks. And then probably my fourth favorite is uh, yeah, the track number 6, Zamara Energy. That one's a really cool track. It sounds like a sort of like a detective novel kind of mystery track with a kind of just basic drum beat, but then it's kind of like has a really kind of like detective story, kind of beautiful keys and just that eerie piano hook. It's just so smooth, and it's just kind of throws in a couple kind of odd samples in there, and it's just such a creative kind of simple, but it kind of grows on you, kind of trip hop track, and I give that one 8 stars. If there's probably a few tracks on here, and just in general, like if you listen to this, I don't think anything's gonna blow you away on this album. You're not gonna be like, oh, that's fantastic. You might say that about a couple tracks on here. If you're really into odd kind of down tempo lounge compilations and that style, you're like, oh, I think a lot of you. The reason why I'm presenting this compilation on my channel is I feel like if you're into down tempo, if you're into trip hop, if you're into like 90s style electronica, you're gonna be like, oh, cool. I discovered like 3 or 4 or 5, really good tracks that I didn't know, and it kind of add that to your Massive Attack and your Portishead and your Pork Recordings volume compilations, and just I go on and on about trip hop artists, but I don't know how much are really widely known when it comes to trip hop. Trip hop is an interesting style because it was definitely overdone, but at the same time, in retrospect, like a lot of those compilations make CDs and artists, they have a lot of good songs. It was a very basic style of electronic music and or electronic music and lounge style. It was really just kind of like urban beats, met a few samples, and then kind of a loungy, jazzy kind of sound over it. Like it was kind of chill out music. It was kind of an urban style version of hip hop. Like that's kind of what like these style of music is. It was just kind of like if you like favored more of an urban beat, but you really wanted to hear more instrumental stuff, this is what you got. And that's as simple as it should have been. It shouldn't have been done to a point where it was kind of overkill in the media so much, because you saw all those to the point where you went into Starbucks in 2001 and you saw all these like chill out compilations, like coffee music and coffee mixes, and you know what I mean. Like it got to such an extreme, it was just like overdone. But so there's a lot of imitation tracks out there, and I'm sure those have good memories for people too, because they're just in general, it's not a style that's overly polished. But if you have I wouldn't say a trained ear for that style, and you kind of grew up through it, and you kind of looked towards the lesser, um, maybe lesser known, or the ones that weren't trying too hard, or the ones that really kind of captured the origins and the feel of trip hop and sort of the direction. Like I feel like you can really enjoy a lot of music in that genre, but there is a lot of stuff that's over the top and not very good as well. But hopefully you like some of the tracks on here. I gave the overall compilation a 72 out of 100, which I think is a very good compilation. But I gave it a couple extra points. I moved it to 76. I gave it a 4 extra points just because of putting together a compilation like this, and they're all pretty much unknown artists. Like I would think most of you, if you haven't heard of this CD, you wouldn't know any of the artists on here. I think Over Soul 7 had maybe a CD, Acid House sort of. Like if you know Brand New Heavies, if you remember Brand New Heavies, like this is kind of there's a little bit of that in here too, and that was kind of the acid jazz sound that kind of started in New York and kind of moved its way around the UK a little bit and even Los Angeles. And this has a little bit of that, but I would imagine like if you looked at the track list on here, 99 out of 100 people wouldn't know any of the artists on this CD, I would imagine, for the most part. So to be a compilation on here and put all these artists on here that nobody's ever heard of, and then have this much good music on here, I give it extra 4 points for that. And also, it's a microcosm of 1998 and lounge music in a good way. And it's kind of a perfect example of that, and just wide range of great down tempo and blends. And then it has such a unknown sort of attraction to it because all the artists are lesser known, and when you hear the music, I think it kind of has like a unique array of music in it. And so for that, and just being a compilation that I've continued to gone to over the last 27 years, and just my memories involved, I'm sure there's a lot of nostalgic in my overall rating as well. But I really tried to, you know, have a critical ear and still rate these, but taking into account the time that they're made, and then taking into account other trip hop of the time and other music around this time, and be respectful of, but be honest with the scores. And I feel like it's a very good CD. I can't say it's excellent, but a lot of memories tied to this for sure. And so in that ways, it's hard not to be a little bit skewed in giving the overall album a few extra points for that. But I feel like it's a strong, very very good example of down tempo and trip hop for the time, and for that, I think it's a very reasonable score. But curious to know your thoughts about this and any particular tracks that you like. Maybe what were your favorite three tracks, and what are some compilations that you loved during the '90s and series, and during the series of compilations that you really liked in the '90s. And again, I'll probably do a video in the future about my favorite compilations of all times from the '90s, which would be an excellent, and it have to be a very in-depth video. It'll probably be a long series, but maybe I can keep it down to like four and just talk about the compilations individually, and give them a nice spotlight, because that period was so important for me, and I love compilations, and I still preach about them today. And I that was one of my favorite ways to take a chance. Like, like taking a chance on one artist, and you don't like a song or two, then you may not like the rest of the album, right? But on a compilation, you had a lot of chances. And there was a lot of times in the compilations you may like two or three tracks, but those are two or three tracks from artists that you would have never found unless you took a chance on that compilation. And it was great back in the days because, I mean, especially in the used bins, like compilations were always for the most part, they were great price. Like you could get compilations for like $3-4, and it's still like that now. Like I can't tell you how many times I go to like a 12-inch record or some kind of CD, and it asks for a really high price, and then I just go, well, I like these tracks. What compilations can I find it on? Oh, I can get that compilation for $4. Well, shit, I'm gonna pick up that, and maybe another track or two on other compilations, and I'll have the tracks that I like from this album that cost 5 times as much, right? So when you start accruing a lot of compilations, and then you And then you would buy an album by somebody, and the opposite was great too. Is all you buy a compilation, you're like, oh, I really like this track. Did I know them from any other compilation? And like, oh, I had this track back on here. Well, that was really cool. Like I remember that too. Like I didn't know that it was on this compilation that I already had. So it was. If you think, I always think of music like a family tree, like a tree, like you're going to ancestry.com, right? And you see this family tree of all your connections and to the history of who you are, right? And when you think of like a music tree, right, and you like compilations was your way to kind of plug in like main artists, like in how to tie certain genres to other genres, and sort of it was that kind of in between those bigger branches were compilations, and they would kind of like tie genres and tie artists together, and your history and your learning of those genres and those artists to go along the way. And that's kind of what helped point you to certain artists and certain styles. You'd be like, oh well, I really like this style. Now I have 5 compilations in this style of music, and now I have this particular artist on 3 of the compilations, and I've liked them on each compilation. Oh well, let me get their album now. So compilations were just so important in growing your tree of knowledge for music. And it was just, I mean, I can't say enough about how compilations were so important to my knowledge in growing up, because especially pre-internet, that how are you going to find a lot of artists in one purchase? It was a compilation, and when you got like a double or triple compilation and just like a nice retrospective, a label, or the best of of a certain artist, I mean, those are great ways to expand your taste and to get the most bang for your buck, when it comes to like finding and digging in bins and coming up with gold. Like compilations were a great way to do it, and I think it's still that way in some respect, but not quite to the level of the '90s, because you have the internet, and that just exposes you to more music. But in those days, super vital, super vital. Even if you go back to the early '80s, one of the most important West Coast like heavy metal compilations was heavy metal albums was that compilation that like Metallica was on, right? It's the same way with that Depeche Mode. I think it was Depeche Mode was featured on that Bizarre Inc. or not Bizarre Inc. That was a rave act, but that Bizarre compilation Depeche Mode was on. So I think it goes the same way with like goth rock. There was I can't think of the name, but there was a goth rock, compilation that was super vital to the beginnings of that style. So throughout the '80s and '90s, there was compilations that kind of are sort of like almost as important as the first main album that you know that everybody kind of points to as like, oh, that started the trip hop generation, like a Massive Attack. Like there's compilations involved. I mean, think about like drum and bass and some of the drum and bass compilations, that were so important, or trance compilations. Like, they're just as important, if not even more important than the certain album that kind of is the quote unquote best, considered one of the best of that generation. You think of like techno with the In Order to Dance compilations, from R&S Records. Like those are signature styles, or even acid house, like the early acid house. I can't think of the acid house. It has just the design on it. It says acid house. God, I can't think of those. I have a couple of them, but there's acid house compilations that kind of are more known than any particular acid house artist, from those times, as far as like one single compilation. I mean, one single album. Like compilations are more known for that. So compilations were known for kicking off styles in a way as well, that a lot of people, that went through it remember it well. But in these kind of days, I mean, you can find a lot of gold in compilations. So if you're kind of new to certain styles, like look for compilations. You'll find a lot more good music than trying to track down an artist or two. And that was vital for the '90s. And if you're interested in '90s music, go to compilations. I think of like the New Electronica compilations, or 100% Pure, if you know that label, or some of the GPR compilations. Artificial Intelligence is a great one for IDM. Those compilations kicked off the style, and they're almost more known for IDM than even I wouldn't say to the Aphex Twin or Autech level, but they're right up there. I mean, artificial intelligence is super important and revered for helping start the IDM generations. Sorry, we went on a little bit long in this video, but there's a lot of memories tied to compilations in general, and certainly to this compilation. So hopefully I enjoy your time. I appreciate your time, excuse me, and we'll see you on the next video.